My name is Chris Larkin, and I'm the Vice President of Development for the Hubbs-SeaWorld Research Institute. Joining me this morning is Wendy Noke Durden, who is one of the lead scientists at our Melbourne Beach, Florida laboratory. Good morning, Wendy. I understand you have some good news for us.
I do. Thanks for having me. We are super excited to announce that our latest publication on Indian River Lagoon dolphin abundance has recently been released, so yay! It was a huge collaborative effort that involved work between us and the University of Central Florida, Branch Oceanographic Institute, Georgia Aquarium Conservation Field Station, and then we had support from Volusia County Environmental Management, St. John's River Water Management District, the Dolphin Ecology Program, and then countless numbers of volunteers, interns, and our colleagues that really made this project possible. So very excited to announce that this morning. It was really the first of its kind, this project, when we utilized this type of boat-based survey to estimate the population of bottlenose dolphins. And that is because the Indian River Lagoon is so huge. So the lagoon expands about 140 miles along the east coast of Florida, and it includes 3 interconnected water basins that total about 900 square kilometers of area that you need to cover. If you're going to do it by boat, you need to traverse all that area, which is a lot to take in. So the majority of, or all of them, I should say, of abundance estimates that have occurred prior have been done using aerial survey. And by aerial survey, I mean flying planes over the entire study area to estimate the population size of bottlenose dolphins. However, bottlenose dolphins, like other small whales and other types of dolphins, can be identified by using unique markings on the dorsal fin that are unique to that individual. So photographing these unique markings and then tracking those individuals over time is a process commonly referred to as photo identification. Now, mark-recapture methodology uses the trends of resighting these animals that have marked dorsal fins over time in order to estimate abundance, to look at survival, and even to look at movements of these animals in and out of the estuary. So this was another method that we could use. However, in order for us to be able to do this, we had to be able to thoroughly cover the entire Indian River Lagoon. Not only cover it, but cover it in a short time period, and then do that throughout the year, repeating it. So just to give you an idea what that would entail, that takes 11 to 13 vessels staffed with really experienced personnel that are traversing a zigzag transect that we laid down in the Indian River Lagoon that is 470 miles long, and then doing that repeatedly over the year. And of course, stopping at every single dolphin that we see, taking really good high quality images in order for this process to work. So as you can imagine, that sounds like an impossible task. And we were frightened to take on such a large project, to be honest. But we're happy to report that we successfully carried it out. So today we're announcing the release of the publication.
Wow. So what did you find out?
Well, we conducted 135 surveys and analyzed over 150,000 images to find an average abundance estimate or an average population size for Indian River Lagoon dolphins, which we found to be about 1,000. So 1,032 animals in the Indian River Lagoon. Now this estimate is actually really remarkably similar to our prior estimates that we had gotten from aerial surveys. So we do think that maybe this suggests that the population has at least remained relatively stable over the last decade or so.
So, okay, and why is that important?
Well, Indian River Lagoon dolphins, unfortunately, have been subjected to numerous unusual mortality events over the past several years. And by unusual mortality event, I mean a large number of dolphins dying over a short period of time. That's occurred several times in 2001, in 2008, and 2013, and then from 2013 to 2015. So the dolphin population is pretty compromised, and they face several anthropogenic threats. So having these abundance estimate numbers allows us to put mortality in context. So in other words, 77 died. Well, out of how many. It allows us to have more context. It allows us to monitor trends over time. And it, most importantly, provides needed information for managers to assess mortality from anthropogenic sources.
So this sounds like a very large project coordinated amongst quite a few people. How long was the planning prior to it?
Oh, wow. We actually kind of had a short time frame, and I can't recall the exact, but we probably only had about 6 or 7 months to lay down transects, to get all the personnel on board, and to figure out how we were going to undertake this monstrous undertaking. So it was quite a bit to manage.
And that planning occurred with those groups that you mentioned earlier, all those folks that collaborated
Yes.
on this project. So
Yes.
that's a lot of people, that's a lot of equipment, that's a lot of time.
Yes.
Who paid for this?
Oh, well, we were super fortunate to receive funding from North Carolina Sea Grant. We also had support from the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens Conservation Fund. And lastly, we always have support from our Discover Florida's Ocean Plate. So we were fortunate to have those sources, because without it, the project would not have been possible.
So what happens to this data now? I mean, are other organizations going to benefit from what you gathered?
Yes, other organizations will benefit, but mostly NOAA Fisheries and those that manage the Indian River Lagoon dolphin population. So the dolphin populations are managed as a stock or a dolphin population where they look at the abundance size every few years. They need updated abundance estimates in order to evaluate how our activities are impacting the population and how the population is doing as a whole. So the best answer to your question is that it'll be utilized by managers to look at how the population is doing and how we're impacting the population.
So NOAA, NOAA, they're going to be receiving this data, which is important to their overall fisheries management and such, right? Is that what I understand?
That's correct, yeah.
And so how often would it be helpful for them to be able to do this type of study? I mean, you said it was the first of its kind, correct?
It's the first time that we've implemented a recapture project to get an abundance estimate, just because it's so complicated for all the reasons I described before. You have to cover the entire lagoon in a short period of time and then repeat that several times over an entire year. It took obviously a lot of people, a minimum of 3 people on 13 boats, adds up to quite a bit for each day that we went out. So yes, this is something that probably will need to be repeated. According to the stock assessment reports, at about 8 years, the estimate will be not valid, and then you'll have to have another one. And that's why we've done aerial surveys in the past to kind of give intermittent abundance estimates to keep an eye on the population.
So what would you like to do with this data? What type of work would you like to extrapolate from it?
Well, that's a great question, Chris. I think it helps us most in understanding things that we see as far as our straining program. So unusual mortality events, we can look at that number and say, okay, well, now we know about 8% of the population died in 2013. It's helpful to us to know, some other types of anthropogenic impacts that we see. For example, we do have a lot of recreational fishing interactions occurring. A lot of times we're successful in helping those animals and being able to intervene and release them back into the wild, but sometimes we're not. And there are several cases of mortality each year from different types of fishing interactions. So it allows us to really put those in context. And then when I say 1,000, that's 1,000 animals, but that's throughout the entire Indian River Lagoon. So then you can look at those sub-basins. So Mosquito Lagoon, Banana River, Indian River, these sub-basins are impacted differently because they don't, for the most part, particularly Mosquito Lagoon, that has a separate abundance estimate, which we also calculated as well. So you're not looking at 1,000 animals, you're looking at a couple hundred animals.
So if resources were unlimited, what's something you would start immediately? What would be a priority to you research-wise from this paper, from this, the work you just completed?
Well, you asked tough questions. The truth is we're probably going to have to start thinking about repeating a similar study in years to come, because the estimate will only be good for so long. And we'll have to think of an efficient way to do that. Not that it's not doable how we did it last time, but it was extremely cumbersome and involved obviously a lot of people, so a lot of skilled people. So what we're going to have to think about how we would replicate this, our work down the road, and how perhaps we could do that better or over a longer time period if money were unlimited.
This is fantastic news. You're absolutely correct about that, Wendy. If you enjoyed what you learned today, and if you get a chance, we will be publishing the report. You can probably access it through one of the links in this video, accompanying this video. Take a look at the work that Wendy and her team and that large collaboration put together on this, because this is the kind of work that our entire science team at the Hubbs-SeaWorld Research Institute is involved in every day. Pandemic or not, this work is ongoing, and this is all about working on conservation issues and preventative measures and mitigation where humankind interacts with our oceans, coastlines, and beaches. And this type of work requires support. And albeit we do get support from, i.e. the license plate that Wendy brought up a little bit ago in Florida, but most of the revenue that we get to support the work that's being done is through the benevolence of individuals and organizations who wish to see this work continue. So I encourage you to make your impact on the work that Wendy and all of our scientists are doing by clicking our donate button and making a donation today and becoming an annual donor and being kept up on all the work that's being done here. So Wendy, as I understand it, right now you got to jump back into your work clothes and head out. What's going on?
Oh, we're actually getting ready for to go out tomorrow in the field. We have a dolphin we need to go check on, so I got to go make the arrangements for that. But I appreciate you having me, and we will talk to you soon with our.
Thanks for sharing your story, Wendy. Thanks for your time, everybody.